Just how many barrels are we talking about at this point, in your view, coming out of Iran?
So it's very good to join you, and it's a very interesting question, and it's a number that's in a little bit of flux at the moment. We certainly mentioned earlier in the report that I put together in the month around sort of 900-ish thousand barrels a day. We've revised that down slightly, probably to something closer to 700,000 barrels a day. The reason being not because the activity's really stopped. The activity carries on via Oman and via the waters around Singapore, but merely because some of the oil discharges have slipped into April. So as we know, the Chinese have been buying an awful lot of crude over the last year and a half, and their inventories are very full. Their inventories are very high at sort of 930 or so million barrels. As a result of that, we've got discharge congestion, and so we're seeing, as I say, some slippage. Now, what that will mean is that in April there will probably be something around the 900 or so thousand barrels a day that we talked about that we expected for March. So very much in line with, sort of the elevated numbers that we've seen in the last 2 years. Versus the last 2 years.
The cloak and dagger on this is fascinating to me, not just as someone who watches the energy markets very closely, but also the geopolitics of all of this as well. When you think about this against the backdrop of this Iran-China deal, a lot of speculation that the Iranians really are selling themselves short in terms of pricing for their crude.
I think it's true to an extent, but when desperation is part of the equation, you have to think that the Iranians are doing the right thing, i.e. they're selling to arguably their largest buyer and probably the only buyer left that's willing to circumvent the sanctions. So what choice do the Iranians have if they want to sell crude and see the revenues from that crude? It's very much a sort of rock in a hard place. If they don't sell at all, then they push themselves into worse economic situations than they're currently in.
And before I let you go, just give us your sense of what we're going to see playing out with OPEC Plus meeting later this week.
I honestly think, there's noise from the Saudis overnight saying, they want OPEC Plus the cuts to continue as they are. I don't see, with Brent being as fragile as it is, I don't see that the OPEC group, OPEC Plus, can really agree to any sort of increase at all. I think they will stay the same because they like the fact that crude is, well, there you go, $65 this morning. They like the fact that crude is relatively robust at that level, but they're also very aware of its fragility. If they release another 1 million barrels or so onto the market, we'll end up with a 5 handle, and all of a sudden the OPEC Plus members will be unhappy about crude revenues.